Most people don't even realize it. But 90% of their energy every single day goes into feeding the problem. They wake up and immediately think about stress, about what's wrong, about who's to blame. And the more they focus on the problem, the bigger it gets until it feels impossible to move forward. But here's the truth. Problems don't keep you stuck. Your focus does. If you keep staring at what's broken, you'll stay broken. If you keep telling the same story about why life is unfair, nothing will ever change. Your life begins to change. The moment you flip the script, the moment you stop giving power to what's wrong and start putting your energy into what can be done, that's where solutions live. That's where growth begins. In this video, you're going to discover 10 habits that will rewire your mind to stop obsessing over problems and start creating real progress. We're talking about radical responsibility, training your focus, acting before fear grows, mastering your emotions, breaking the habit of complaining, and building consistency even when results feel slow. No fluff, no hype, just the raw mindset shift that takes you from stuck to unstoppable. Because the world doesn't reward those who complain the loudest, it rewards those who solve, those who move, those who refuse to stay the same. So let's get into it. Here's how you build the solution-focused mindset that transforms everything. Everything begins here. If you want a solution-focused life, if you want to break free from being stuck, the very first step is radical responsibility, not half responsibility. Not I'll take control when it's convenient. Radical responsibility means you stop waiting for someone else to fix your life. And you decide right here, right now, that it's on you. Most people never cross this line. They live their entire lives in a loop of blame. They blame their childhood. They blame their boss. They blame their spouse. They blame the economy. And here's the harsh truth. Every time you point your finger outward, you hand over your power, you give away control of your own future, because if it's always someone else's fault, then it's also someone else's job to fix it. And if you're waiting on them, you'll be waiting forever. Responsibility doesn't mean you caused everything. It doesn't mean you deserved every hardship or that every setback was your fault. That's not the point. Responsibility simply means it's your job to deal with it now. Even if the mess wasn't yours, the solution can be that shift. Owning what happens from this moment forward is what separates those who stay stuck from those who rise. Think about it. The moment you take responsibility, you stop living in excuses, you stop waiting for motivation, you stop hoping for circumstances to magically change. Instead, you say, this is my life. It's not perfect, but I'm in charge now. That decision instantly changes the way you think, the way you respond, and the way you act. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people both lose their job. One person spends weeks complaining, replaying how unfair it was, blaming the company, blaming the economy, blaming everyone. They stay stuck, the other person. They feel the same pain, but they take responsibility. Okay, this happened. What can I do right now? What skills can I sharpen? What opportunities can I pursue? One person waits, the other person builds. The difference isn't luck, it's responsibility. Blame is seductive because it feels easy. It lets you off the hook, but blame never builds. It only drains. And if you want growth, if you want progress, you cannot afford to waste your energy pointing fingers. You need that energy for solutions. Ask yourself, what are you avoiding by blaming? What pain are you protecting by staying a victim of your story? Because every time you explain why you're not where you want to be, you're reinforcing the problem instead of moving toward the solution. Taking responsibility will make you uncomfortable. It will force you to face truths you've been hiding from your habits. your patterns, your procrastination, your fear. But that discomfort is where growth begins. You can't improve what you won't own, and you can't solve what you refuse to confront. Here's the power and responsibility. The second you own it, you gain clarity. You stop asking, why me? And you start asking, what can I do about it? That one shift changes everything. Because why me keeps you in the past. But what can I do pulls you into the present where action lives. And responsibility doesn't have to be dramatic. It's in the small choices. It's waking up and deciding to work on your craft instead of scrolling. It's choosing to take a walk instead of making another excuse about your health. It's reaching out to someone instead of complaining about loneliness. Every small decision compounds. Every choice to take ownership stacks up until one day you look around and realize your entire life has shifted. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I fail? What if I take responsibility and still don't get the result? That's the beauty of it. Failure is information. When you own it, you don't collapse. You adjust. You don't hide. You learn. Responsibility keeps you moving, while blame keeps you stuck. Look at anyone who's built something meaningful: an athlete, an entrepreneur, an artist, a leader. Every single one of them reached a point where they could have blamed, but they didn't. They said, it's on me. It's my time, my effort, my decision. That's what responsibility looks like. Not perfection, but ownership. And let me tell you this, you will never regret taking responsibility. You might regret blaming, you might regret waiting, you might regret the years you spent making excuses, but you will never regret saying, this is mine, I will handle it. Because even if you stumble, you'll grow. Even if you fail, you'll become stronger. That's how solutions are born, through people who refuse to let go of ownership. So here's your challenge. Today, catch yourself. Every time your mind tries to complain or blame, stop. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now to move forward? Not next week, not when life gets easier. Right now, one thing. Replace the complaint with an action. Replace the excuse with ownership. Because the truth is, life will always give you problems. That will never change. But what defines your future is whether you choose to complain about them or create through them. Radical responsibility is not a burden, it's your power. It's the key that unlocks every solution, every breakthrough, every success you've been waiting for. The world doesn't respect excuses. It respects results. And results come from people who look life in the eye and say, no matter what, I own this. From this moment forward, you decide. No more waiting. No more pointing fingers. No more living beneath your potential. This is your life. Own it fully. Build it daily. And watch how fast problems shrink when your focus shifts to solutions. Your life always follows your focus. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. And where your energy flows, results eventually grow. The problem is, most people never realize they've trained their mind to obsess over everything that's wrong. They wake up and instantly replay stress, regrets, and fears. They scroll social media and compare themselves to others. They lie awake at night imagining the worst-case scenario, and then they wonder why they feel stuck, exhausted, and hopeless. Here's the truth. You are not broken. You're just focused in the wrong direction. Your mind is like a camera lens. Wherever you aim it, that's what becomes bigger and sharper. If you keep pointing it at failure, fear, and frustration, that's all you'll see. But the moment you redirect your focus to clarity, growth, and action, your brain starts building new patterns. You start seeing possibilities instead of obstacles. Focus is not automatic. It's a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. The problem is, most people spend years training it by accident, letting distractions, negativity, and fear dominate their mental space. And the result? Scattered focus, scattered energy, scattered life. If you want to build momentum, if you want progress that compounds, you need to take back control of your attention. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you stopped and actually noticed where your focus was going? Most people can't answer that because they don't track it. They assume their thoughts just happen. But focus is a choice if you don't choose it. Someone else will, advertisers, media, toxic people, endless notifications. Every ding on your phone is a battle for your future. And if you keep surrendering, don't be surprised when you feel like life is slipping away. Training your focus starts with awareness. Begin by asking yourself throughout the day, what am I giving my energy to right now? If the answer doesn't serve your growth, shift it. That's not denial. That's direction. You're not ignoring problems. You're refusing to feed them more than they deserve. See the problem? Address it. Then move your attention to what helps. Here's a practical way to start. I call it the focus method. F stands for filter. Ask yourself, does this thought or task grow me or drain me? If it drains, cut it. O stands for one task, stop multitasking. Commit fully. C is for clock, use time blocks of 25 minutes. U is for unplug. Remove the noise. Silence your phone. And S is for summary at the end of each session. Write one sentence. What did I just build that closes the loop and reinforces progress? The more you practice this, the stronger your focus muscle becomes. Think of focus like going to the gym. If you only lift a weight once in a while, your muscles won't grow. But if you train consistently, even with small reps, your strength compounds. Focus works the same way. 5 minutes of deep attention every day will move you further than 5 hours of distraction. And here's the best part. Once your brain experiences the clarity of true focus, it starts craving it. You'll notice your anxiety drops, your energy rises, and your productivity multiplies, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you stopped wasting energy on noise. Let me give you a simple real-life example. 2 students prepare for an exam. One studies with their phone buzzing, music blasting, switching between TikTok and textbooks. They study for 4 hours, but retain almost nothing. The other student locks in for 45 minutes. No, distractions, then takes a short break. In the same total time, that second student makes 3-4 times the progress. Why? Because their focus was trained, and focus always beats busyness. The same principle applies to building wealth, fitness, or relationships. If you constantly give your attention to fear, gossip, or complaints, you'll create a reality filled with fear, gossip, and complaints. But if you train your attention toward building skills, nurturing health, and solving problems, you create a life filled with growth, confidence, and solutions. So how do you build this habit? Start small. Tomorrow morning, instead of reaching for your phone, first thing, take 5 minutes just to write down 3 things you want to focus on that day. Not 10, not 20, just 3. Then commit to doing them with full attention. You'll be shocked at how much more progress you make by focusing less on quantity and more on quality. You can also use what I call the redirection rule. Every time you catch your mind drifting into negative loops, overthinking, comparing, doubting, pause and ask, what would actually help right now? then redirect, even if it's something small. That shift rewires your brain. You stop spiraling and start solving. The truth is, distractions will never disappear. Life will always throw noise at you. But the strongest people are not the ones with no distractions. They're the ones who've trained themselves to ignore what doesn't matter and lock on to what does. That's what gives them clarity under pressure. That's what helps them see opportunity where others only see obstacles. Your focus is your future. Protect it like your most valuable asset, because it is. If you waste it on problems, you'll multiply problems. If you invest it in solutions, you'll multiply results. So here's your challenge for today. Take just 30 minutes, pick one meaningful task, eliminate every distraction, pour your full focus into it. Then, when you're done, write down, "This is what I built." That single act will start training your brain to crave clarity over chaos, progress over panic. Remember this: scattered focus creates scattered results, but trained focus creates unstoppable growth. Your future depends on what you give your attention to today. Choose wisely, train it daily, and watch your life move in the direction of your focus. One of the biggest traps that keeps people stuck is waiting. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until the fear goes away. They wait until the timing seems perfect. But the truth is, fear doesn't disappear with waiting, it grows. The longer you stall, the more your imagination exaggerates the problem until it feels 10 times bigger than it really is. Think about it. How many times in your life have you delayed a decision, sending that email, making that call, taking that first step toward a goal, only to realize later that the hardest part wasn't the action itself, but the weeks or months you wasted dreading it? Fear multiplies in silence. It feeds on delay. Your brain is designed to protect you. It scans for threats, and when you hesitate, it convinces you that discomfort is danger. It whispers, "Wait, stay safe, don't risk it." The problem is, your brain doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a simple challenge. So if you listen to that voice, you'll start building a habit of hesitation. And one day, you'll wake up realizing fear has trained you to pause instead of push. That's why one of the most powerful habits you can develop is this: act before fear takes over. Not recklessly, not blindly, but decisively. When you move quickly, you catch the problem before it turns into a monster in your mind. You shrink it back to size by proving to yourself, "I can handle this." Take this example. A young entrepreneur wanted to pitch her business idea. She kept telling herself she needed to refine the slides, rehearse more, wait for the perfect moment. Weeks went by. Her fear grew. By the time she finally presented, she was overwhelmed. Compare that to another entrepreneur who acted the same week she had the idea. Was she nervous? Of course. But because she moved before fear had time to expand, she gained feedback, momentum, and confidence. One is paralyzed by waiting. The other grows through action. Here's the key. Courage doesn't show up before the action. It shows up after. Most people think they need confidence first, then they'll act. But confidence is built by doing. You prove to your mind, "I'm capable," only when you step forward. Action precedes belief. So how do you practice this? Use the 60-second rule. The moment you feel fear creeping in, give yourself 60 seconds to move. Make the call. Send the message. Write the first line. Step into the gym. Whatever it is, do something, anything that pushes the ball forward. Why? Because fear grows in the gap between intention and action. If you close that gap quickly, Fear doesn't have room to breathe. Another strategy is to break the challenge into its smallest possible step. Fear makes the whole mountain look impossible. But if you say, I'm not climbing the entire mountain today, I'm just taking the first step, suddenly it feels manageable. And once you're moving, momentum carries you. Here's the truth. 90% of the things you fear will never happen. Your mind creates worst-case scenarios, but reality is rarely that dramatic. And even when the fear is real, acting sooner gives you more control. You're facing the problem while it's still small instead of letting it snowball into a crisis. Let's get practical. If you've been avoiding a difficult conversation, act before fear convinces you it's impossible. Start with one sentence. If you've been delaying a project, open the file and write one paragraph. If you've been postponing a fitness routine, put on your shoes and step outside. Don't underestimate small actions. They break the paralysis. They show your brain, see, I survived. I'm capable. I can keep going. Here's your challenge. Think of one thing you've been avoiding because of fear. Just one. Before today ends, take a step toward it. Not tomorrow. Not next week, today. Even if it's small. Do it. Send the message. Sign up to make the call. Give yourself proof that you can move even when you don't feel ready. Because readiness is a myth. If you keep waiting for the perfect time, you'll waste years. The perfect time doesn't exist. What exists is the decision to act. And the moment you act, you rob fear of its power. Remember, this fear feeds on delay, but action starves it. The longer you wait, the louder fear becomes. But the moment you move, fear loses its grip. Every time you act before fear takes over. You're not just solving a problem, you're building a stronger identity. You become the kind of person who doesn't wait for courage but creates it through movement. Your future won't be shaped by the fears you felt. It will be shaped by the actions you took despite them. So stop waiting for the day you feel fearless. That day may never come. Instead, start today. Move quickly, act boldly, and watch how small steps create massive shifts. Because in the end, fear is loud but not wise. And your destiny belongs not to hesitation, but to the actions you choose right now. Life will test you. That's not a possibility, it's a guarantee. Plans will fall apart. People will disappoint you. And situations you thought were certain will collapse overnight. You don't get to control every storm, but you do get to control how you respond. And that one decision, how you react when life hits, will define the quality of your future more than the setback itself. Most people don't realize this, but your first reaction to a setback is like a mirror. It reflects the quality of your mindset. Some people get angry, complain, or sink into self-pity. Others pause, breathe, and ask, what's my next move? The same storm. Two very different outcomes. The difference isn't in the problem, it's in the response. When you react emotionally, you hand your power over to the situation. You let anger, fear, or frustration decide your next step. And emotional decisions are almost always the wrong ones. Think about the times you said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted, or when you quit too early because frustration clouded your judgment. Those weren't the setbacks destroying you, it was your reaction. But when you take ownership of your response, you step back into control. Ownership means you don't deny the pain, but you also don't let it drive you. You feel it, you process it, and then you choose deliberately how to move forward. That's strength. That's maturity. Let me give you a simple example. Two people both face rejection, say, a job application gets denied. Person A reacts with bitterness. The system is unfair. Why bother trying? They shut down, complain, and stop applying. Person B feels the sting too, but they take ownership. All right, what can I improve? What did this teach me? What's the next opportunity? Person A stays stuck in resentment. Person B grows through resilience. Same event, completely different outcomes. The truth is, setbacks are neutral. They're not out to destroy you or bless you. They're just events. What matters is the meaning you attach and the response you choose. That's why ownership is so powerful. It forces you to take back control of the story you tell yourself. Here's where most people go wrong. They confuse ownership with guilt. They think taking ownership means blaming themselves for everything. Wrong. Ownership doesn't mean it's all your fault. It means it's your responsibility to decide what happens next. That's the difference between staying a victim and becoming a leader of your own life. And let's be clear, setbacks aren't supposed to be comfortable. They sting. They hit your pride. But pain is not the enemy. It's the signal. It's telling you where you still need to grow, where your habits are weak, where your mindset hasn't been tested. If you use that signal, setbacks become your teacher. If you ignore it, setbacks become your excuse. Here's a practical way to apply this. Build what I call the pause, reflect, respond method. 1, pause. When something goes wrong, resist the urge to react instantly. Breathe. Create a tiny gap between event and response. 2, reflect. Ask yourself, what just happened? What am I feeling? What outcome do I really want? That short reflection pulls you out of panic and into clarity. 3, respond. Choose one action that moves you forward. Not the easiest action. Not the one that makes you feel good instantly, but the one that actually helps. This method turns setbacks into stepping stones. Instead of reacting on autopilot, you respond with intention. Think about athletes who lose a game. The amateurs blame the referee. How the weather? Or bad luck? The champions watch the tape, study their mistakes, and adjust. That's ownership. That's why they come back stronger while others fade away. Your challenge today is simple. The next time something small goes wrong, a delay, an argument, a mistake, practice the pause, reflect, respond method. Don't try to fix everything at once. Just pause, reflect, and then choose a response that builds instead of breaks. Do it with small problems, and you'll be ready when big setbacks arrive. Remember this, setbacks don't define you. Your response does. Some people let problems shrink them. Others use those same problems to build strength. The difference is ownership. So take full control of how you react. Stop letting circumstances dictate your mood. Stop letting other people's behavior control your peace. Stand up in the middle of the storm and decide, this is how I will respond. That's where your real power lives. That's how setbacks turn into fuel. Because success isn't built in the easy moments. It's built in the pressure, in the disappointment, in the failures you refuse to let break you. Own your reactions, and you'll build a mindset so strong that no setback can keep you down. One of the quietest ways people waste their potential is by living inside their own heads, thinking in circles. It doesn't always feel destructive. In fact, it often feels like you're being productive because you're thinking things through. But in reality, you're not solving anything. You're just spinning the same thought on repeat. It starts small, a worry, a doubt, a what if. Instead of taking one clear action, you replay it again and again, the problem doesn't shrink, it grows. And the longer you stay stuck in that loop, the heavier it feels, until the thought itself drains more energy than the problem ever could. Here's the truth. Circular thinking is a trap disguised as effort. It convinces you that you're making progress because you're analyzing, but progress is measured by forward motion, not mental repetition. Think about it. How many nights have you laid awake, rehashing the same scenario, asking the same questions, but waking up with no clarity? How many times have you told a friend the same story for the 10th time, but still felt stuck? That's not reflection. That's rumination. And rumination is the enemy of solutions. The key is learning to catch the loop early, because once a thought starts circling, it builds momentum. It feeds on itself. It creates emotions, anxiety, frustration, helplessness that reinforce the loop even more. That's why awareness is everything. You don't need to judge yourself for looping. You just need to notice it. Here are some signs you're thinking in circles. You've been asking yourself the same question for days without finding new answers. Your thinking is making you more anxious, not less. You're repeating old pain or regret without moving to action. You're mentally replaying scenarios you can't control. If any of these sound familiar, it's time to stop spinning and start shifting. One powerful tool for this is what I call the loop break method 1. Notice it. When you catch your brain replaying the same thought, literally call it out. I've already thought this. Naming it weakens its grip. 2, write it. Put the thought on paper. Ask yourself, what's the real issue here? What's one step I can take right now? Writing transforms vague fear into concrete clarity. 3, shift it. If there's no new insight, redirect your focus to something useful, whether it's action, gratitude, or a small task that gives momentum. Think of your brain like a computer with too many tabs open. Every loop is another tab draining energy. Closing even one frees up focus and restores clarity. Here's a real-world example. A man kept worrying about whether to change careers. For months, he replayed the same fear. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work? What if I regret it? He wasn't moving, just spinning. One day, he wrote the fears down and identified the real issue. I'm scared of losing financial stability. And created one small step, research job options for 30 minutes. That action didn't solve everything, but it broke the loop. It replaced rumination with progress. That's the point. It's not about solving the whole problem instantly. It's about interrupting the loop and reclaiming your focus. Here's your challenge. The next time you catch yourself replaying the same thought, stop and ask, am I solving? Or am I spinning? If you're spinning, grab a notebook, write down the thought, then immediately list one action, no matter how small, that moves you forward. Because here's the truth. Thinking without acting doesn't reduce fear, it increases it. Reflection is useful only if it leads to clarity, decisions, or peace. If it only creates stress, it's not reflection, it's rumination. Protect your mind from that trap. Your thoughts should serve you, not imprison you. The strongest people are not the ones who never worry. They're the ones who know how to catch worry before it turns into a mental prison. Remember this, your life is not built by the thoughts you repeat. It's built by the actions you take. Break the loop. Shift into movement, and you'll find that most of the problems you thought were massive were only magnified by your mind. When you stop spinning, you start solving, and when you start solving, you start growing. When pressure hits, most people react the same way they panic. Their chest tightens, their thoughts race, their breathing shortens. And in that state, they make quick, emotional decisions that often create even bigger problems. Panic doesn't give you clarity. Panic steals it. And if you let panic rule your choices, your life will always feel chaotic, unstable, and out of control. Here's the truth. Strength doesn't come from reacting faster. It comes from pausing long enough to think clearly. Real power is not speed, it's clarity under pressure. But society has trained us to believe the opposite. We're told to move fast, reply instantly, fix everything immediately. The problem with rushing is that it narrows your vision. It makes you see only what's wrong instead of what's possible. And when your vision narrows, you make short-term choices just to escape discomfort instead of long-term decisions that actually build your future. Think about it. How many times have you said something in anger that you later regretted, or made a rushed choice under stress that cost you more time and energy to fix later? That wasn't the situation destroying you, it was the panic. So what's the solution? You must build the habit of creating space between what happens and what you do next. That space is everything. It's the difference between reacting out of fear and responding with wisdom. I call this the power of the pause. When something unexpected hits bad news, reception. An argument, don't rush. Pause. Take one deep breath. Count to 3. Remind yourself, I control my response. That pause interrupts panic. It gives your brain a chance to switch from emotional survival mode to logical thinking mode. Here's a practical example. Imagine you receive an email at work that feels insulting. Most people would fire back instantly, letting emotions write the message. Hours later, they regret it. But someone who practices the power of the pause will step away, breathe, and ask, what's the smart response here? Instead of burning bridges, they preserve their professionalism and even turn the situation into an opportunity. Same email, completely different outcome because of one pause. Another example, think of a parent who sees their child make a mistake. The first instinct might be to yell, but if they pause, breathe, and create space, they can respond with guidance instead of anger. That one choice can strengthen the relationship instead of damaging it. The key is understanding that calm is not weakness, it's strength. It takes more discipline to hold your tongue, breathe, and choose wisely than it does to lash out. Anyone can react. Few can respond, and that's why the ones who can are trusted as leaders. So how do you build this habit? Start with small daily practices. Morning grounding. Take 5 minutes of silence before your day begins. Train your mind to value stillness. Breath reset when tension rises. And slow your breathing. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. This signals your brain, I am safe. I can think. Verbal cue. Say to yourself, I need a moment. This buys you time to gather clarity before you respond. At first, it will feel unnatural. You're used to reacting instantly. But over time, you'll notice that the pause becomes automatic. You'll feel the wave of emotion rise. And instead of drowning in it, you'll let it pass. That's mastery. Here's your challenge. This week, catch one moment where you feel panic rising. Instead of reacting, pause it. Step back. Ask yourself, what outcome do I really want? Then respond from that clarity. Start with one situation, maybe traffic, maybe a disagreement, maybe a sudden mistake. The more you practice, the stronger your mental control becomes. Remember, this calm isn't about ignoring problems. It's about creating the space to solve them wisely. Anyone can react when life throws a curveball, but the ones who create space, the ones who pause, think, and respond, those are the people who build lives that last because panic makes problems bigger. Space makes them smaller. And the person who owns the space between event and response is the person who owns their future. Most people make life harder than it has to be because they don't stop to ask the right question. When stress hits, when frustration builds, when everything feels overwhelming, their first instinct is to complain, blame, or distract themselves. They repeat the same cycle of negative thinking without ever pausing to reflect, and in that cycle, they stay stuck. But here's a simple shift that can change everything when chaos surrounds you. Stop and ask yourself, what would actually help right now, not what feels good, not what looks impressive, not what will get approval from others. What would actually help? This question is powerful because it forces you to move from emotion to clarity. Instead of spiraling in anger or fear, your brain starts searching for solutions. You begin to shift from reaction to strategy. That small shift can save hours of wasted energy and prevent mistakes that could cost you weeks. For example, imagine you're in the middle of a busy workday. Your to-do list is exploding, and you feel like you're drowning. The emotional reaction is to panic, multitask, or complain to coworkers. But if you stop and ask, what would actually help right now, the answer might be simple. Close the tabs, pick the single most important task, and give it 30 minutes of focus. That's not glamorous, but it's effective. Or imagine you've just had an argument with someone you care about. The natural instinct is to defend yourself, to keep pushing your point, or to replay the conversation in your head. But if you pause and ask, what would actually help right now? Maybe the answer is to take a walk, breathe, and give space before coming back to talk with a calm mind. That one choice can save a relationship from unnecessary damage. The beauty of this question is that it grounds you in the present. Most stress comes from living in the past or the future. You replay mistakes you can't change, or you worry about scenarios that may never happen. Asking what would actually help right now drags you back into the only place you have power, the present moment. And often, the answer isn't complicated. Sometimes what helps is drinking water, stretching your body, or writing down your thoughts. Sometimes it's sending that one email you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. Solutions are usually simple, but you won't see them if you're lost in noise. Here's a simple framework I call the help check. H stands for halt, the spiral F. The moment you feel stress rising, stop. Don't let your autopilot reaction take over. E stands for evaluate the moment. Ask yourself, what's happening right now? What truly matters most? This grounds you in the present. L stands for list your options. Write down 2 or 3 things you could do, small, realistic actions that move you forward. And P stands for pick one. Don't overthink it. Choose the option that helps and act on it immediately. This isn't about perfection. It's about breaking the cycle of stress and creating clarity through action. This framework cuts through confusion. It doesn't require hours of planning, just a pause, a question, and one small action. Here's your challenge. The next time you feel overwhelmed, stop and ask out loud, what would actually help right now? Say it clearly. Then act on the first useful answer that comes to mind. Don't wait for the perfect solution. Do the helpful one. Because here's the truth. Success isn't about doing everything at once. It's about doing the right thing at the right moment. And you only find that when you slow down enough to ask. Strong people aren't the ones who never feel stress. They're the ones who know how to guide themselves through it. They don't waste hours stuck in what went wrong. They anchor themselves with this question. find clarity, and move forward with purpose. So the next time your world feels loud, your emotions rise, or you catch yourself spiraling, remember this simple phrase: what would actually help right now? That's the doorway to progress. That's the shift that takes you from stuck to steady. That's the question that builds solutions instead of problems. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it won't just be a tool, it will be your habit. And that habit will keep you moving forward no matter what life throws your way. Complaining is one of the easiest habits in the world and one of the most destructive. It requires no effort, no courage, and no discipline. All it takes is your voice describing what's wrong. And the more you do it, the more it becomes your default. You see the negative first. You talk about the negative most. And slowly, you start to live in the negative. Here's the hard truth. Complaining doesn't fix anything. It doesn't solve the situation. It doesn't make you stronger. All it does is drain your energy and anchor your focus to the problem. And remember, what you focus on expands. If you keep feeding your frustration with words, it will grow. That's why the strongest people replace complaining with action. Instead of saying, "This is unfair," or "I can't believe this happened," they ask, "What's one thing I can do right now to move forward?" It doesn't have to be a massive step. It just has to be action, because action builds while complaining breaks. Think about it. Two people face the same obstacle. One spends the whole day venting about it, telling everyone how hard life is, and going to bed drained. The other takes 10 minutes to act, sending an email, making a call, writing a plan. At the end of the day, the problem might not be fully solved, but one person is stuck in frustration while the other has momentum. That's the difference between living as a victim and living as a creator. Victims complain. Creators act. Here's a simple framework I call the ACT switch, a 3-step method to turn every complaint into progress. A, acknowledge the feeling. Don't pretend you're not upset. Notice it. Say, "Yes, this is frustrating," but don't stay there. C, choose one small step. Ask, what can I do right now that actually helps? Maybe it's sending one message, organizing your space, or taking a 5-minute break to reset. T, take action immediately, not tomorrow, not later, right now. One step forward. That's how you rewire the pattern. This process breaks the loop of negativity. Instead of pouring your energy into words, you pour it into movement. And that movement, no matter how small, changes how you feel, how you think, and ultimately, how you live. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine someone stuck in traffic. The complainer spends the whole time angry, honking, and talking about how terrible the city is. By the time they arrive, their energy is gone. The action taker says, "All right, I can't control the traffic. What can I do?" They turn on an audiobook, call someone they love, or brainstorm ideas. Same situation. One drains life. The other creates growth. Complaining feels good for a moment because it releases pressure, but it doesn't build anything. In fact, it often makes the problem feel heavier. Action might feel harder at first, but it lightens the load because it moves you forward. Here's your challenge. Catch yourself one time today when you're about to complain. Before the words leave your mouth, stop and ask, what's one small action I can take instead? Then do it. Maybe it's handling a small task. Maybe it's shifting your focus. Maybe it's changing your environment. Whatever it is, prove to yourself that you can act instead of complain. Over time, this habit rewires your brain. You begin to see challenges differently. Instead of thinking, here's another thing to complain about, you think, here's another chance to grow. And that shift changes your entire life. Remember, this complaining makes you weaker. Action makes you stronger. The choice is yours every single day. So stop giving your voice to what's wrong and start giving your energy to what's useful. One action at a time. One choice at a time. That's how you trade frustration for progress. That's how you build momentum. That's how you transform your life. Have you ever made a decision in the heat of the moment and later thought, what was I thinking? That's the danger of letting emotions lead. When your emotions run high, your vision narrows, your judgment blurs, and you end up reacting instead of responding. And those quick emotional reactions often create consequences far bigger than the original problem. Here's the truth. Emotions aren't the enemy. They're signals. They tell you something matters. But if you let emotions make your decisions, you give away your power. Strong people don't suppress their emotions. They learn to calm them so their choices stay clear. Think about this. How many arguments could have been avoided if someone paused before speaking? How many careers derailed because someone fired off an angry email? How many relationships suffered because a person made a permanent choice during a temporary storm? It's not the setback itself that destroys progress. It's the reaction made without clarity. The skill you need here is emotional leadership, the ability to feel deeply but still choose wisely. That comes from learning how to calm your emotions in the moment so you create space for better decisions. One practical method I teach is the CAM Reset C. Catch the trigger. Notice the signs: racing thoughts, tight chest, raised voice. That's your system telling you, pause it now. A, acknowledge the emotion. Say to yourself, I'm angry, or I'm anxious. Naming the feeling reduces its intensity. Lower your state. Breathe deeply. Slow your body, or step away for a moment. Your body leads your mind. When the body relaxes, the brain follows. Move with clarity. Once you've calmed, ask, what outcome do I want? What response builds, not breaks? Then act from that place of strength. Here's an example. Imagine a leader hearing bad news from their team. Their instinct might be to snap. How could you let this happen? That reaction only spreads fear. But a leader who practices the CAM Reset notices the trigger, pauses, breathes, and says, all right, this is tough. Let's figure out solutions. Same situation. Two completely different outcomes. One destroys trust, the other builds respect. Or take relationships. A partner forgets something important. The emotional reaction might be to yell or withdraw, but if you pause, acknowledge the frustration. Calm yourself, and then speak with clarity. This mattered to me. And here's why you turn a fight into growth. The truth is, calm isn't passive. Calm is powerful. Calm means you don't give control of your life to every emotion that passes through. You lead your emotions instead of being led by them. And that's what makes your decisions steady, reliable, and respected. Here's your challenge. The next time you feel emotions rising, practice the calm reset. Catch it early. Breathe. And ask yourself, if I were at my strongest right now, how would I respond? Then do that. Even if you only succeed once out of 5 times. That's progress. With practice, it will become your natural response. Remember this. Anyone can react. It takes strength to respond with calm. But the people who master this are the ones who build lasting success because their choices are guided by clarity, not chaos. So the next time you feel yourself about to break, remind yourself, I don't have to match the speed of my emotions. I can pause. I can breathe. I can choose. That's how you keep your power. That's how you protect your future. And that's how you make decisions you'll be proud of tomorrow. One of the biggest killers of progress is impatience. You work hard for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, and when the results don't show up fast enough, doubt creeps in. You start to think, maybe this isn't working. Maybe I'm wasting my time. Maybe this just isn't for me. That's where most people quit, not because they weren't capable, but because they confused slow progress with no progress. Here's the truth. Real growth is rarely fast. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's built in small steps that don't always feel exciting. Progress often looks invisible until suddenly, one day, the breakthrough appears. But if you stop too soon, you never get to see it. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For weeks, you see nothing. No leaves, no flowers, just dirt. But underneath, roots are forming. The foundation is being built. If you gave up watering on day 20 because nothing's happening, you'd never see the tree that was about to sprout. Your life works the same way. That's why you must train yourself to keep going, especially when it feels slow, because slow progress is still progress. Every repetition, every choice, every action is stacking up behind the scenes, even if you can't see the results yet. The difference between winners and quitters isn't talent, it's persistence. Quitters need instant evidence. Winners trust the process. Here's a framework I call the PACE method to stay steady when results feel slow P- perspective. Remind yourself every master was once a beginner. What feels slow now is just the process of building roots. A, adjust. Don't abandon. If something isn't working, tweak your approach. But don't throw away the whole journey just because progress is quiet. C, count the small wins. Track every step forward, no matter how tiny. Write them down. Seeing progress builds belief. E, endure. Decide in advance that you're committed even when motivation fades. Discipline is what carries you when feelings don't. Let me give you an example. A young writer decided to start a blog. After 6 months of posting consistently, only a handful of people read his work. He almost quit, but instead, he adjusted his style, learned about headlines, and kept going. 3 years later, his blog had millions of readers. If he had stopped when the progress felt too slow, no one would ever know his name. Or take the gym. Most people quit in the first month because they don't see abs in the mirror. But the ones who keep showing up, even when it feels pointless, eventually transform their bodies, not because of one dramatic workout, but because of steady effort over time. Here's your challenge. Think about one area of your life where you've been tempted to quit because progress felt slow. This week, commit to one more round of consistent action. Maybe it's one more week at the gym, one more week of writing, one more week of saving money, one more week of practicing your craft. Don't measure the day, measure the discipline. Because here's the truth, the breakthrough often comes right after the moment you were about to quit. Most people never see it because they walk away too soon. Don't be most people. Remember this, you're not stuck because you're slow. You're only stuck if you stop. Success doesn't come to the fastest, it comes to the most consistent. So, when the journey feels quiet, when the results feel invisible, when doubt whispers, what's the point? That's your sign. That's the exact moment to double down, not walk away, because every step you take, even the small ones, are compounding. And one day, all of it will add up to the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Keep going, keep building, keep believing. Slow progress is still progress, and the only way you lose is if you quit. Your journey isn't about avoiding problems, it's about mastering how you respond to them. Every chapter we've walked through taking responsibility, training your focus, acting before fear grows, creating space to think, calming your emotions, replacing complaints with action was designed to build one thing, a stronger, clearer, more resilient version of you. Because here's the truth. Life will always test you. Circumstances will shift. People will doubt you. Fear will whisper in your ear. But none of those things define you. What defines you is how you choose to respond. Do you give in or do you rise up? Do you complain or do you create? Do you let your emotions rule you? Or do you lead yourself with clarity and courage? This is your moment, not tomorrow, not someday. Right now, decide who you want to be. Decide to stop living beneath your potential. Decide to keep going even when progress feels slow. Decide to focus on solutions, not problems, because your future depends on it, and the power is already in your hands. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just listen to these words, live them. Take one principle from this video and apply it today. Show yourself that you are capable of leading your life with strength, discipline, and vision. If this message spoke to you, make sure you like this video. Subscribe to Think Rich Mindset Hub and turn on the notifications so you never miss the next step in this life-changing journey. Drop a comment below. Which principle are you going to apply starting today? Your answer might be the spark that inspires someone else. This is not just about motivation, it's about transformation. And your transformation starts now.